Hey everybody, welcome to a playoff edition of The Drop, a special edition only on YouTube. Greg Wyshynski, Ardo Cal, and yes, this is the first playoff edition. In fact, this is a playoff preview edition, a special edition. We are recording this on a Saturday morning. That's how diligent we are, Wish. We want to get you, our Drop faithful, our playoff picks.
Yeah, but in fairness, we're doing it Saturday morning because the damn season ended on Friday night. Hey, we were watching Avalanche and Predators trying to figure out what these playoff matchups were going to be. The whole party starts on Monday. This weekend is a lost weekend for your friends in the hockey media. Let me tell you that right now.
Also, Friday night was a lost night. I was doing In the Crease on a night I didn't think I'd be doing In the Crease. But hey, makeup games, people. Makeup games. But you're right, the Colorado Avalanche took to the very last game of the regular season to clinch the Central. And why don't we start there? By clinching the Central, they end with 109 points. They will now face the Seattle Kraken in the first round of the playoffs. The Kraken, of course, at 100 points. The biggest glow-up from year one to year two in NHL history. They had 60 points in the first year. They get up 40 points. 40 extra points in year two to get to 100. In your opinion, Wish, is that enough? Are the Kraken enough to dethrone the reigning Stanley Cup champs in round one?
Well, first off, that year-over-year points thing is devil's erasure, but we'll get there. During the last 10
year
games
one
of the
to
season,
two, Wish. Year 1 to 2, okay?
During the last 10 games of the season, the Kraken were 30th in save percentage at 5-on-5. They were 27th in expected goals for at 5-on-5. I mentioned these two things because those are the two things that had gone right for Seattle during this remarkable turnaround from year one to year two. They were getting saves, and they were an offensive juggernaut at times, using some really solid depth from rookie Matty Beniers to defenseman Vince Dunn all down the lineup. Jared McCann making 40 goals. Like, they were really good for most of this year. Kind of feel like the wheels fell off a little bit towards the end. And meanwhile, the Colorado Avalanche decided to fire up the steamroller. They missed Cale Makar towards the end of the season, but yet Nathan McKinnon went into beast mode, took over. Watch that game against Nashville. All four goals, all four had Nathan McKinnon's fingerprints on them. I don't see how they lose this series based on how things are trending. I do give the Kraken that one win in Seattle to send the people home happy, give them a little taste of the playoffs. But ultimately, Arda, I'm going to say Avs in 5 here.
So you're giving the Kraken the treatment this year that the Devils had the last time they made the playoffs and played Tampa?
That's
they
right.
Get that one home win and they lose. Okay, got it. All right, understood.
I think a gentleman's sweep is you lose game one and win the next 4. I don't know what this would be. Maybe a house guest sweep. Where the Avalanche win all the games except for one in Seattle. But I do think the Kraken will get one in Seattle. But I do think the Avalanche will win the series in 5.
Yeah, I think the Avalanche are getting hot at the right time. And, I mean, there was that one goal McKinnon scored in the last game of regular season where he just went through the defense, like a Connor Bedard just through the wall. Like as if the wall had a crack in it already.
It legit was like a goal that you look at and you're just expecting the next thing you hear to be EA Sports. Like, it's just a video game goal. It was awesome.
The defense had their controllers deactivated. The Battle of Minnesota, sort of. The Dallas Stars against the Minnesota Wild. Dallas, second in the Central, 108 points. Minnesota Wild, third in the Central. They were locked there for a little bit, 103 points. Who wins this one?
Well, I think it'll be the Dallas Stars, but I do think this is going to be one of our first-round 7-game series. The Stars handled the Wild pretty well in the regular season, 2-0-2 against Minnesota during the regular season, but they're absolutely rolling into the playoffs. I really love the way that Dallas closed the deal. They made the Central Division title race interesting at the end based on how well they played. And there are some distinct advantages here. Like, as good as the Minnesota goaltending has been this year, they don't have Jake Ottinger, and I think Ottinger is a huge reason why the Dallas Stars are favored in this series and should be favored in a lot of series in the Western Conference this year. But I also think that I've always had a problem with the Wild lineup, Arda, which is that it's a donut. It's a donut, essentially. Like, I still think they are empty in the middle for the most part when you compare them to the other contenders in the NHL for the Stanley Cup. I think the Dallas Stars have a distinct depth advantage at center and in scoring overall between these two teams. So I do think it's going to be a grind. Minnesota is too good defensively for this thing to be a runaway for Dallas. It'll go 7, but I do think the Stars have enough to outlast the Wild in this series and win the State of Hockey playoff series.
The State of Hockey playoff series. I love it. I will say this, though. When we talk about chemistry on the ice, we often mention Zuccarello, Kaprizov, like that's the traditional one, right? But then lately we've been talking Matt Boldy, Joel Eriksson Ek, and Marcus Johansson. They've been fantastic. So if that continues into the playoffs, they might be a feisty team that Dallas will play against. So I like your 7-game series prediction, especially if Fleury shows up and shows out, right?
I see your line chemistry from Minnesota, and I raise you one, Robertson, Pavelski, and Hintz, my friend.
That's a very good point. The Vegas Golden Knights have won the West, 111 points. They face the Winnipeg Jets, who are in the second wildcard position, 95 points. How does this one shake down?
So again, I'm taking the recent trends into account here. I kind of like the way the Jets have been playing defensively, especially towards the end of the season. I think that they are kind of hitting their stride a little bit. Look, two things have to happen for them to win this series against Vegas. Connor Hellebuyck has to be exceptionally better than the Golden Knights goaltending battery, and I think that's a possibility. And also they need Nick Ehlers to not only be healthy, but be effective in the series. And I've heard speculation that he could play in game 1. If that's the case, then it could be an interesting series. So interesting, in fact, Arda. I'm taking the Jets here, baby.
No
I'm taking
kidding.
the Jets to beat the Golden Knights in 6 games. I do think that this is going to be a Connor Hellebuyck series. And ultimately, although the Knights are going to get a huge boost, they're getting Shea Theodore back, should get Mark Stone back. I don't know, man. There's something always been a little bit off about the Knights, despite the points that they were able to gather this season. They're playing against some teams in the West that were intentionally trying not to do well. I think that's one reason why those points were so cushioned this year. The Jets have never really been a favorite of mine. I think they're janky and a little bit politically weird inside the locker room. I think Rick Bowness has been trying his best to fix this team all season, and he might have gotten there. So I will take Connor Hellebuyck. I will take the revenge of Nate Schmidt, and I will take the Winnipeg Jets to defeat the Vegas Golden Knights in the first round in a pretty big upset.
Look at the believer of Josh Norrisy and Mark Scheifele.
Yeah, why not, right?
And they do have a history of upsets. I mean, they beat the Oilers. Remember, was it like a sweep a couple years ago? So they do have that vibe to them. So
I gotta have the Ehlers though, man.
Ehlers is your key.
That's the thread. If you pull, the sweater will unravel. So if he's healthy, I'm gonna pick him in the series.
I'll just say congratulations, Vegas fans. Finally, long suffering back in the postseason. Good for you. Speaking of the Oilers, they were second in the Pacific, 109 points against the Los Angeles Kings. We got a rematch of last season's first round. That one went 7 games. LA finishes with 104 points. I don't know, man. Like, to me, this is Edmonton's year. I really feel that way. I really feel like Edmonton's going to make a long run here, so I'm picking them to win here. What say you?
Well, you and I are in the same boat for the Oilers. We're on the same bandwagon. Terrible news for Edmonton. The wheels are obviously going to come off at some point because we were the kiss of death. Look, it's funny. There's been a lot of attention paid to how good the Kings have gotten since last playoff. Adding Kevin Fiala, the younger players are a little bit better. The moves they made at the trade deadline, in particular, Jonas Korpisalo, I think, have made them a better team. Not enough attention has been made for how better the Oilers are than they were last season in this series. You know, Stuart Skinner stabilizing the goaltending position as a rookie. Matthias Ekholm being arguably the best trade deadline acquisition for any team ever in the NHL this season.
Wow, okay.
I mean, this season. Like, he's a plus 28 or something since he's gotten to Edmonton. So I like the Oilers in this series. I like them to win in 6 against the Kings. It could be another tight series. The Kings are by no means a pushover. But Connor in God mode, Draisaitl healthy, and this team overall being better than it was last season, I think they're going to win in fewer games against the Kings than they did last year.
Yeah, I listen. I know that we have a poor track record whenever we pick teams in orange and blue to win. It typically goes bad. Just look at last year. And I want to be clear on this. You picked the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup at the start of the season. So if the further they go, the more flowers you deserve here because you picked them at the start of the year. You were one of the few. So
I did, and I picked them without knowing that Connor would continue his Pokemon evolution into some sort of hockey deity, as he did this season. The 16th, I believe it was, or 15th highest point total season in NHL history. The only people ahead of him were guys named Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and Steve Yzerman. So he was incredible. And I think that he's like McKinnon last year, man. Like, he's on a mission. He's just on a mission. And I've been saying for months, At some point, you put two generational talents on the same team, they're going to figure it out, and I think Edmonton figures it out this season.
Very, very big side note. We're going to get to the East in a second. That Yzerman season was in the 80s. Bernie Nichols also had a 60-plus goal, 150-plus point season, also around the 80s. Connor McDavid, this could very well be the best individual season in NHL history by somebody not named Wayne or Mario. It really could be. You could make that argument.
Agree. Yeah, I mean, he's playing against goalies that actually wear properly sized pads and know how to play their position. So, I mean, it's totally different than what they faced in the 80s.
To the Eastern Conference, I have a theory for you. Can I throw it at you?
Please, yes.
The Boston Bruins long locked up the President's Trophy, most wins in an NHL season, most points in an NHL season, 135. They face the Florida Panthers. What if, here's my tinfoil hat theory, here's my big conspiracy theory for the NHL playoffs, Greg Wyshynski. What if we should not be comparing the Boston Bruins of this season to the 2019 Tampa Bay Lightning? Instead, we should be comparing the Boston Bruins of this season to the 2007 New England Patriots. What if the Boston Bruins make it to the Stanley Cup Final only to lose in Game 7?
I kind of love it. I don't want to spoil the rest of my picks that'll come out on ESPN.com at some point, but I'm kind of picking up what you're putting down there, baby. When it comes to the Bruins. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Obviously, that means that you and I both believe the Bruins will make it past the Florida Panthers in the series. I will say, though, I think this is a sneaky tough matchup for Boston. I think people are underrating the fact that the Panthers were the second best team in expected goals in the last 10 games of the season. They love to possess the puck, which is the kind of team that could give the Boston Bruins problems. Between Alex Leon and Sergei Bobrovsky, they may have enough goaltending to make this thing interesting. I have the Bruins in 6, but I do think that there is a certain overrating of their ability to win this matchup in fewer games. I think the Panthers are going to be a tough out, and I'd love to see at least one game of the Matthew Tkachuk show against the Boston Bruins putting the Panthers over.
And by the way, we talked about our individual awards on another video you can find on the NHL and ESPN YouTube channel. Matthew Tkachuk gaining a lot of Hart Trophy steam. Go watch that video when you're done watching here. All of our individual NHL awards, another special edition of The Drop. The Toronto Maple Leafs, 111 points, second in the Atlantic, facing the Tampa Bay Lightning. Again, a rematch from last year. 7 games, 1 goal separated them. It was a 2-1 final in Game 7. Tampa's 98 points. Is this the year, Wish, that the Leafs finally win a first-round series and avenge that loss last year?
For the first time since the George W. Bush administration here in the United States, the Toronto Maple Leafs will win a playoff series. I've been saying for months, man, the attrition is going to catch up to the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think it finally has, specifically on defense. You know, last year they were able to roll out Victor Hedman and Jan Ruda, Ryan McDonough, Eric Cernak, and those guys would play, 51, 52 minutes of the game? Okay, that's a luxury that the Lightning had during their championship seasons and their run to the final last year that they no longer have. Ruda's on the Penguins, McDonough on the Predators. The combo of Ian Cole and Cernak, I think, have played well this year, but Hedman's lost. Hedman is not himself this year for whatever reason. The pillars are still there. Stamkos, Kucherov, Vasilevsky, Point, Killorn. Still reason to believe that they could be competitive in this series, but I don't know, man. I just think the Leafs are deeper, they're better, and at some point, it all does catch up to the champions when they go on one of these multi-year runs, and I think it catches up with the Lightning this series. I like the Toronto Maple Leafs in 6. If it goes 7, they're obviously losing, so I'm going to pick Toronto in 6.
How confident are you in Toronto's goaltending?
I think Samsonov has been great, and I think that if he falters, it may not necessarily fall on Matt Murray to fix this thing, buddy. I think they've got another option there on the roster besides Samsonov.
So we shouldn't be as doom and gloom, or Leafs fans, I should say, doom and gloom as projected, because that's the big question mark, right? What will these goaltenders look like in the playoffs? Let
me ask you a question, because I know that you have to be impartial as the host of In the Crease.
Yeah.
Are you a Leafs fan?
I grew up a Leafs fan, but then I started working I did Devils and Rangers broadcasts. When you work for teams, then you start to want them to win, right? Obviously. Right. And at ESPN now, we just want good games because we want people to watch the games, right? We just want good games.
I've just been thinking about what it's going to be like if they actually do make a run. If they go and
it'll be amazing.
Or it's going to be like when all of the Bostonians that had forsaken the Bruins because of the Jacobs year, all the dysfunction that drove people away from Boston, and then how the entirety of New England started to give a crap about hockey again when the Bruins made that run and beat Vancouver. Like, I can't imagine the amount of Leafs fans coming out of the woodwork from all corners of North America.
Oh, yeah.
If this team actually goes on, wins a playoff series and goes on a run.
They had 200,000 people show up for a Raptors conference final victory. That's how starved the city of Toronto is for any major sports victory. If the Leafs win a round, I guarantee you there will be 50,000 people in the city of Toronto celebrating a first round victory. I'm calling it now, 50,000 people at the very minimum for a first round. And it'll multiply by 5, 10 each round they make it. I guarantee it. That'll be the biggest parade in North American sports. The one that's outstanding, that one will be it. 5 million plus if they win the Stanley Cup.
Well, I hope after this round when they beat the Lightning in 6, I hope my friends in Toronto have parked their cars in Kitchener to be safe from all of the rioting and looting that will happen in Toronto if they actually win a playoff series.
Wish the most exciting series of the first round will no doubt be the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the New York Islanders. The Hurricanes have 113 points. I'm kidding. Please don't come at me, Islanders and Hurricanes fans. We love you on this show. Sorry, Islanders fans, about last season. 93 points for the Islanders. Who wins the battle of the defensive stalwarts?
First of all, I no sold your joke because you're trying to make a defensive hockey joke to a kid who grew up in the trap years. I love this. I love the one that's in grind. This is comfort food.
This is you're eating your popcorn. You're like, yeah, I love this. Oh, what a great takeaway.
A blocked shot. Let's go. Look, I already picked the Jets in an upset. I don't know if this qualifies as an upset because everybody seems to be on the Islanders' tip, especially in the punditry. This is the biggest difference, Arda, between the betting markets and the punditry. The punditry is all like, I think the Islanders here, and the betting markets are still very much, we definitely think the Hurricanes here. I'm with the Hurricanes in this one. I know that not having Pacioretty and not having Svechnikov puts them even further behind the 8 ball when it comes to generating enough offense in the playoffs to win some of these close series. But it's not like they're playing an offensive juggernaut on the other side. Like, this is the kind of series played to the margins, 2-1 games, that the Carolina Hurricanes, as currently constituted, can certainly win. So I'm taking the Hurricanes in this series. I'll take them in 7. I do think it's going to be one of these grindy series that'll go the distance. But their first in expected goals at 5-on-5 in their last 10 games. Second best defensive team throughout the season. Mm-hmm. Give me Sebastian Aho. Give me Brent Burns back at the point. Give me some of these guys that I know that can generate offense in a series like this. And I'm sorry, I just don't see the automatic, let's give the Islanders the dub here just because they happen to eke their way into the playoffs. Did you guys not see that game in Washington? Like, it's not a very good hockey team, even if they get Barzal back. Certainly not as good as Carolina.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'll go the contrarian route then. Give me Sebastian Aho on the other side. Also, give me Ilya Sorokin. I feel like Ilya Sorokin could be the kind of goaltender when he's at his best that can absolutely steal a series or steal a few games. So I'll go, let's say 7. Islanders squeak it out in 7. How about that?
Hurricanes have some dubs against Sorokin this year, man. They
do.
Listen, I don't think that they can beat whoever comes out of the following series. I don't think they could beat the Bruins, but I think they could beat the Islanders, and I think they will beat the Islanders.
The hockey gods in our last series to talk about here were very kind to us because we finally get to see the Battle of the Hudson in the playoffs once again. It's been a minute. This one is going to be crazy. It's going to be fun. It's going to be passionate. And we live in the New York area, so we're going to be right in the middle of it. The New Jersey Devils, they have occupied the second position in the Metro, 112 points, taking on the New York Rangers. Metro 3, 107 points. The Battle of the Hudson, baby. First of all, just talk about it as a Devils fan, okay? Like, you get to, now you're covering this series, but like, how cool is this that you get to see this matchup, the Devils and the Rangers?
It's been a long time, man. It's been a long time. It's been since the Henrique goal in the conference final back in 2012.
It's over.
I got to say that I was talking to Ken Danico the other day for a story about the Battle of the Hudson, and we were reminiscing about what this rivalry used to be when the Devils hadn't yet won a Stanley Cup, let alone 3. And Dano told me that they wouldn't even evoke the Rangers name in the locker room. Like, that's the level of animosity that existed between these two teams. You think about the level of animosity that existed back in the 15, 20 years ago when it was the Avery Brodeur rivalry, where Brodeur wouldn't shake his hand in the handshake line and the whole thing. Like, those rivalry series were legit heat. This is kind of different, isn't it? Like, this is the Devils still on the come up. This is the Rangers obviously doing their Rangers thing. They made the conference final last year. They add Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko at the trade deadline, which is a Rangers flex if I ever saw one. So we aren't quite at the moment yet where we've been in previous boiling points in this rivalry. That being said, we are at a moment where these two teams are two of the most exciting teams in the NHL in the way that they play. I think it's fascinating that with all these sort of like defensive stalwarts that we have in the East, be it Boston, the Lightning can play that way, Carolina, the Islanders, the two teams that like to go, play on the rush, find room for their stars to operate are the two teams that end up playing in the first round. This is going to be an amazing series. I think it's going to be an emotional series. I think you're going to see Jacob Trouba knock out one of the Devils at some point, then everybody gets very angry, and it changes the complexion of the series. It's going to be great. I think the Devils win. I think they win it in 7. I think it's very contingent on goaltending. Obviously, Vitek Vanacek has to be the solution. He has to stay healthy. If Mackenzie Blackwood is in the series, you can basically give the Rangers 2 goals in the first period and hope the Devils come back against Igor Shesterkin. That's basically the formula right now. But give me the Devils. Give me Jack Hughes in superstar mode. Give me Timo Meier having played in a series like this back in the West when he was with the Sharks. And give me Andre Palat to do the thing that Andre Palat does, which is probably score the game-winning goal in Game 7.
Imagine Jacob Trouba, a hard, clean hit. Think the Nazem Kadri hit on Jack Hughes. Imagine what that would do.
I don't want to. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, the boiling point for this rivalry has been much higher in previous series.
Okay.
But all it takes is that one moment where Jacob Trouba does something like that, and all of a sudden we're right back where we were in '94. You know, like it's going to be amazing. And by the way, for those who don't know, also amazing, the atmosphere at these games. There will be a 60-40 split of Devils fans and Ranger fans in Jersey. It'll sound like 70-30 Ranger fans. And then there have been more and more Devil fans getting into MSG for these games too. So it's going to be absolutely a blast. But I will take homer pick, obviously. You know where my loyalties lie. I'll take the Devils in 7.
I will say this. If the Rangers lose in the first round, I feel like that would overall be seen as a big disappointment. Not just because of how far they went last year, but all the additions they made this year. That would certainly be seen as a disappointment. And here's another thing. Everyone I've talked to, Devils fans, Rangers fans, even if it's, like you said, the boiling point is higher on the ice, it is definitely not higher off the ice. Like, the fans are like, there's no way we want to lose to that team. Like, that, it is there already. Yeah. And Devils fans and Rangers fans know this. So I love it. As a neutral, like as someone who's just observing that, I cannot wait. So those are our picks. Let us know in the comments below what you think will happen in the first round of Stanley Cup playoffs. Impromptu. Go ahead.
Also, check out our bracket challenge, ladies and gentlemen. You can find it on our socials on Twitter. We'll send it out again. We'll maybe put it in the notes for this show. But Arda and I are doing an ESPN Stanley Cup bracket challenge. You can battle the two of us. There's cash prizes on the line. So head over to the link in the comments here, or in the write up here, and then head over to Twitter and you can find it on our socials.
On ESPN Fantasy, we've already filled out our brackets. Please join us and fill out your bracket. I'm going to spring this on you, Wish. Impromptu edition of Search for Merch. Yeah. I want to just do this to end the show. You're going to appreciate this because you wrote a fantastic article about this. I didn't even know this existed. I just wanted to show it to you. Okay?
Yeah.
Totally random, has nothing to do with the NHL playoffs.
Okay. Is that the Goon?
This is right here. This is a Goon action figure. I can't believe this exists. This guy lasted for like 3 months. You wrote a great oral history on him on ESPN.com.
Yeah.
But here he is, the Goon. And this is the best. Can I just read the description for you? So this is the back. He had a jersey. He wrestled in skates, by the way. This was like 1995.
His boots were made to look like skates. Yeah, it was awesome.
This is the description. The Goon was kicked out of every hockey rink in America for unsportsmanlike conduct. The Goon brought his joy for fighting to the WWE. And he's got removable arms, so you can take off the hockey gloves and you can put on the fists so that he can fight.
Again, to have been in that pitch meeting where Bill Irwin sits down and Vince is like, look at him. He looks like a goon. And then they just say, okay, hockey stick, skates, Let's go.
And his finisher, by the way, was a hip check outside of the ring, and he'd win by countout. That was his finish.
Yeah, I always hated that. I always thought that, obviously, being a hockey fan, that you could have gone with an elbow to the head or something along those lines, and then that could have been it. But
anyway, now you all know this exists. Go check out Wish's article. Go join us in the fantasy group. Enjoy the first day of the Stanley Cup playoffs. For the first several days, we will be on ESPN. That's where the NHL playoffs start. Wish, what's your coverage going to look like this year?
I'll be in Boston for the first couple games, and I think I'm switching over to Battle of the Hudson for a little bit. All over the place, but that's the joy of it, man. It's going to be fun to cover these games, tell some stories, and see how it all plays out. Because again, like, we didn't talk about this at all, but ain't guaranteed the Boston Bruins are going to make it through. In the wild card era, the President's Trophy winning team has never played for the Stanley Cup, and in fact, in all but 2 instances, they were out in the second round. So keep that in mind, Leafs fans and Lightning fans.
I'm still going with my 07 Patriots theory. I'm just going to ride that until it doesn't happen anymore.
I can't believe we're both picking Edmonton and Boston in the final. This is just guaranteed.
I love it.
Like, it's
I love
not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. This was like an 80s final in the Stanley Cup. By the way, one last thing. Thank you for watching the entire show. Thursday will be our next live edition of The Drop. So you will find us on ESPN, Twitter, YouTube, etc. So look forward to that show. We will have shows throughout the playoffs. Check our socials for schedules. On that note, enjoy the playoffs. Goodbye.